Hey everyone, welcome to Corliss Architecture. I'm Stephen Corliss, owner and architect. Today we're going to take a look at an interior remodel of a Victorian style home. So let's jump right in. Okay, so I quickly wanted to do a little overview of the home in 3D on Google Maps. As I mentioned, a Victorian style home. It's over 150 years old. So it's going to be important to stay consistent with the theme of the home in terms of its styling. We'll only be doing the first floor remodel, but still it's important to make sure that the character of the home is intact with a more modern remodel. So we did do an existing condition survey. That's what this is here. If you're familiar with our process, we use Magic Plan. It's a great app that allows us to do laser scanning and just quickly, easily create a 3D floor plan like this and pull out photographs and dimensions of all the rooms. So we're going to be focusing on the kitchen area primarily. We've got a load-bearing wall off to the right-hand side here that needs to be removed. We're going to see if there's any opportunities to add any additional light through some new windows. And generally, the homeowner was also interested in seeing if the overall floor plan could be more useful, more efficient. So we will be seeing if we can reprogram some of these spaces by simply adding or opening some of the walls a little larger than already shown here. But first, before we jump into modeling up the existing conditions, let's do a little design session so that we have some guidance for how we want to start the design process here. Okay, so we will start by removing all of the walls that the homeowner is interested in either removing or opening up. We've got a load-bearing wall between the kitchen and the dining room, which we're going to be removing completely. Over on this side between the kitchen and the living room, there's another wall that we want to open up a little bit, and a closet that we're going to remove and sort of rebuild, and a fireplace with some storage. We are going to propose putting in an additional window into the kitchen to get some more daylight in there in that corner. And then this window is a large fixed window that I want to propose actually closing in and rebuilding out with two new windows that will be better aligned with the walking path and sort of the opening that is opposite of this wall, and mirroring these windows to the opposite side of the exterior wall, so that we can flank a seating area that is just sort of better symmetrical on the fireplace. We're going to be adding a storage closet for the foyer. So when you walk in, you've got a place to store all of your items. So the fireplace will look something like this, with a couple of bookcases at either side of the fireplace, a couch or seating area, sofa, table, with a coffee table and two side chairs, something like that. We're going to propose deep countertops, 30 inches, with a sink and refrigerator in the corner, a big island with potentially the cooktop and oven. And then this area here, the dining room, will have a coffee bar with some pantry units, and the overall flow seems pretty well. So let's give this a shot. Alright, so seems like we've got everything existing conditions wise modeled up. We've got the ceilings in there. Ceiling in the kitchen is a little bit lower than the rest of the house because we've got the space pack kind of running through there, it seems like. Showed you guys the protruding stair in the kitchen. That's what that looks like there, with the lower ceiling in the kitchen area. So everything's adding up, looking appropriate and matching our existing conditions survey. So one thing that I did not do at the beginning was set my phasing so that everything we built would be considered existing conditions, which it is. So I just want to make sure I afterwards grab everything that's built here and I put that on an existing conditions or the previous model phase. So best way to do that is select everything, click check none, or if you do have check all, you can unselect the rectangular straight wall openings. I believe stair runs supports, it just wants basically the overall stair and then everything else should be good. And after you select all that, it should revise the properties menu so that the phasing won't be ghosted any longer, and we can put all of that new construction on existing. And so what that's going to do is on your floor plans, if you have them phased, which I do and I like to show, it's going to show everything that's existing as sort of slightly ghosted or grayscaled 50%. And that allows us to start putting in our new objects, walls, things of that nature in a darker tone. What all that also helps us do is I've got a demolition plan sort of started up here already. I'm going to want to clean that up and make that part of our deliverables so the client understands what is exactly being proposed. I've got tags that I usually just kind of move around and designate for either walls to be taken out, flooring to be removed. But what's great about this is because it's considered a demolition plan and the phasing is set to show previous plus demo within the new construction phase. Anything I take and select for it to be demolished in the new construction phase will show it as dashed, and we can immediately move a tag over and associate the tag with some demolition notes off to the right hand side here. So that's how our demolition plans are put together. Not really ever too much necessity to go in much more level than that. Contractors are usually pretty good at understanding based on this drawing what has to be done in order to achieve the new design. And yeah, so I've got that. What I'm going to do is start popping in some new windows, and when I do that, for instance, we'll go back to our regular floor plan, and I want to put in a full glaze window. I'm not exactly sure where it's going to go right now, but I do know that I want it to be in that area and about 24 by 72, and I've got one in here that looks like it's colored black. But we can change that or just use it as a precedent for swapping out the new trim color. I've got a trim dark material which we'll use to match all of the stained wood trim throughout the home. And I'm just going to modify this since I don't think we're going to be using that window in this project. Just say wood trim, and I did want this to go basically full height or to the underside of the ceiling minus 12 inches. So if we set it to 84, I can set it at the ground, and let's see if we can make it 36 inches wide. So 7 feet. Sill height's going to be 0 on that, width 3 feet, and sometimes you have to double check the sill height, even though the window says that it's designated that in the properties. You have to come back into this properties menu and just reset it to 0. So that's what that looks like there. You can see the color is darker compared to the existing conditions work. And then if I go back in my demolitions plan, it'll show me this wall needs to be demolished. It doesn't say exactly how much, so that's why it's great to have these notes that kind of correlate with it, that the contractor can say, reference this note, go to the note, it says, see elevations or see floor plan or door window schedule for further instructions, designations, sizing, that sort of information. So I also like to just add on a couple of lines that sort of designate the jam so they have a little bit of an understanding. If you really want, you can add the width and the height and the information right on there. But so these demolition plans are great. They sort of build themselves in terms of eliminating content like that. So I'm just going to start running through here. One thing I did want to mention is for doing wall openings, if there's parts of walls that you want to keep, like for instance right here, I do want to keep the remainder of this wall. So what I would do in this case is take my split element tool, just get it as close as I can to where I want the wall to be removed. And then I like to select right click on that little ball endpoint there, do a disallow join, bring it back to my wall position where I am turning the corner there. And I should be able to just run this into it without it joining. And it's still treated as two separate walls now. And I can take this and move it onto my Demolition and new construction phase, and it'll show as being removed. So as always, it's good to just jump back into your 3D view, make sure that things are sort of populating accordingly. So we can see that this wall has been removed throughout that area, and a window has been put into that location there. So, like I mentioned before, we're going to be sort of toying or battling with some of the existing style of the home with some of the newer style of the home. So I think if there's areas that clash where they do have a newer door that was fiberglass, white, something of that nature, those might be elements that we'll just have to discuss in terms of design discussions, but they can also be a suggestion that, if you want the design to be more consistent throughout this area, let's talk about getting a new door that's wood colored, or not colored, but just wood all the way through, and a color that matches the trim. But you can see how it starts to leak into other areas of the home. Now we would have to replace this window here to also make the kitchen look cohesive and just consistent. So I'm going to run through and just kind of toggle some things on and off that were based on some of our design discussions, and see where the design starts to land before we just do a mock-up kitchen for our first deliverable. And that should do it for this design iteration. We'll sort of place these on some drawing sheets and show the overall package once we're finished. So I'm just going to center this fireplace unit here, and we can talk about what's going on here so far. So I had mentioned I wanted to get a little more equal sunlight, daylight, natural light into this space here. It was very kind of heavily lit on the upper or northern side, and then down here it got very dim. They're sort of collecting things on a table, not very usable space. Thought that this can become either their primary living media area, room, space area, just off of the office area. So maybe where some homework can get done, or if it's a home office and phone calls are being taken, these doors can be shut and isolated from this area. Or a secondary space. We also talked about sort of placing the dining or a secondary eating area over here, and then this being also a more formal dining area. So this first pass is definitely to get just a general sort of overview on what their position is on some of these moves. I want to infill these side areas here with some cabinetry, put a TV above the wall, put some new flooring throughout. I've got a beam that is coming in overhead here, so we might even mimic those beams throughout the space just to kind of give it a little more character. And then reprogramming these spaces as a formal sitting area, and then the kitchen, and then popping in the closets in this area. So I'm going to go ahead and take out this wall. I already removed this wall, which I'll put a beam coming in across there. Then we can start to get into some perspective views to see how things are shaping up. Okay, as I'm starting to get into just kind of mocking up the kitchen area, just some general rules of thumb is, make sure you're maintaining the proper clearances around things like your kitchen island. You always want a minimum of 3 feet, and then on top of that, you'll have to start considering extra space for appliance openings, dishwasher doors coming down, refrigerator doors opening, oven doors. So typically between the primary utility wall for the kitchen and the island, 3 feet is the minimum. But again, your countertops are at 3 feet or just under, so you have to imagine that the door for the dishwasher is coming down into that aisle area, so anyone trying to get around that would have to wait. So typically we like to keep the aisles between this primary utility wall and the island at least 4 feet, sometimes even a little bit more. It doesn't hurt also if they're offset in certain ways. For instance, I've got 3 feet opening between this door coming in and the edge of the island. We might want to even scooch that a hair over, but I want to look at the overall width of the island, which I was starting to set this wall sort of consistent with the wall of the fireplace opening over here and sort of storage wall, so meaning this closet wall here. So if you see that wall aligns, and then I've got the edge of the island here that I don't necessarily want to be walking right into this way either. So I'll set this at a minimum of 3 feet also, and you can start seeing where the island just wants to be placed in terms of some of those guidelines. And something like this is obviously way too far in between, so we're going to have to be walking into the edge of it at some capacity. We are pursuing this deeper countertop design, which I've discussed in other videos. You basically do a ledger board along the back wall, set this to 30 inches instead of your 24, and it looks a lot more glamorous. But then, we've got this window that's kind of sneaking in here between the door and the edge of that, so that can be a guiding principle, sort of aligning that in the center of the edge of the door opening. It looks like it's pretty close to 4 feet. So setting that centered. Just by either nudging it or doing the align tool. Sometimes the align tool doesn't really like to work. It'll actually scooch over something that you have logged on there, like that line. But anyway, that's pretty close. And from there, it looks like I've got 3'6", so maybe we can maintain 4 feet. And that might be pretty much where it wants to align. So we'll have to see how this looks. If this looks a little funky, kind of walking into the edge here, we might be able to scooch it, one way or the other, but it's not terrible. So let's see the island that we ended up with. And I'm showing this as 4 feet wide, assuming that we're going to get some cabinetry on this side with some seating on this side. So 4 feet by just under 8, 7.5. That's not bad. I mean, you can still get 4 seats along the edge there. So let's start just kind of mocking that up. I've got the closet here, and I don't think I want to penetrate any deeper into that space. So, but it does look like if I'm aligning this wall there, which was sort of arbitrary, we could nudge it down, but as I mentioned before, I do want to conceal the edge of the stair penetrating through there. So I'm wondering if I can sort of build a soffit out across here that can conceal that, and it can make it look a little more intentional or intentionally incorporated into the design there. So I will pad this wall out here. We're going to have to sort of reprogram the space here. And the kitchen, I want to make sure that there's enough storage and utility space. Right now this is running about 12 feet, which would be good. We'll have to divide the slab up in there. The sink we still wanted aligned with this window, unless we were going to add another window. But this would mean if I'm aligning it with this edge, I've got 3 feet distance there, so that's not terrible. We can kind of maintain that. But I was wanting to open up this wall a little more than what was shown there previous. But we might be sort of limited to this, which could be okay, just to delineate the spaces. So this is how it's shaping up, not bad. We'll add a little bit more details. Okay, I'm going to start bringing in some kitchen components, starting with the island. We're going to do just some end panels. So I think if I start typing in panel, I've got some components that are either single or double-sided fill. So got these. And we're going to look at a bit more of a traditional, or even like sort of a Frank Lloyd Wright inspired kitchen for this one. So I thought it'd be interesting to get some of these parts and pieces in place and then try and use some AI generators to come up with some themed aesthetics. So I'm just bringing these into place for our end panels. I'm going to assess how much space we have in between. Kind of come up with a general layout. So 7'5". So it's always great to bust out the calculator. Cabinets are in increments of 3. So if we divided this by 4, we could do 21-inch with some remaining panels on the side, and then maybe even just shorten it in one direction or the other. So I think that's probably a pretty good starting point. I'm just going to start with that, and then with all of this, have conversations with the client, the homeowner, see what the preference is. But I think that's going to be a good cabinet starting point. Flat 2-drawer are very popular, the drawer style now. So I'm going to start at this end since I want to keep my utility wall as long as possible, and I'll shorten it from the back end on that side. So let's take this. I'm going to make sure that these are 21 inches. I'm just going to rename it wood trim. And I'm going to paint it with our matching wood trim color. And we'll have to make sure we specify on the final plans that these are to be veneered and not simply a painted MDF or anything like that. Makes a huge difference in terms of cost. So now that we got that in place, we should be able to take it, copy, paste it over every 21 inches, or just snap to the end of the previous one. And if our calculations were pretty close, that should leave us with a little bit left over there, which if we shorten it, 21 inches is still pretty good for like shoulder to shoulder bar stool width. So like I had mentioned before, we should be able to still get at least 4 bar stools in there, which I think should work for their purposes. And with this aesthetic, I did want to do, I'm going to leave the end panel where it's at there, copy this over, rotate 90 degrees, and then snap this into place. Nope, I'll have to move it into place. And then see if I can align this edge. Yes. So with that, the countertop will overlap, and then we'll see if we can add some like trim around the edges with some posts that come down and kind of capture the end. That'll open things up a little bit more so it doesn't feel so monolithic and heavy. With the sink, we'll see if we can do sort of a porcelain farmhouse sink style sink on this one. So I'm going to type in sink in my properties menu there, and I should have a cabinet that is a farmhouse style sink cabinet, standard height 36 inch. So we'll make sure that this is the shaker style, and I think I was using the flat style for this. I was base cabinet flat. So I think the flat is going to look a little more mid-century modern, which might align a little bit more with Frank Lloyd Wright styling than the shaker necessarily. So let me see if I have that in flat, which I think I do. So I did have it in there. It just took me a second to find it. And I want to make sure, I just popped it in there, but I got to make sure that the height of it is consistent with the other farmhouse style. So I'm going to select that. And the height should come up to, this is coming up to 2'10". Standard height, I don't want standard height, I want this height, which is height 2 feet and ½ inch. Okay. So I will match that with this, edit to 2 feet. So at least for the models that we have, our farmhouse sink is going to sit like 10 inches into that cabinet space. So that's also important to coordinate with your cabinet provider. And then for this one, the window is basically in that area, so I'm going to align the front and the center of that window, and then we'll have to work around that in terms of locating our dishwasher, refrigerator, things of that nature. So now that I got the sink cabinet in place, I can place our farmhouse sink. So if I type in sink again, it'll come up with everything labeled sink, but I specifically have a single basin 19 by 36 white, so I could put that in here, rotate 90, align center, and then shift it back so it also aligns with the front edge of the cabinets. So I'm going to borrow my countertops from over here, paste it, and I want to separate the island from the main one, so I'll copy it again, just edit this in place. So this, I'm just going to drag a new rectangle around that and delete these. And then I'm going to want to cut a notch out for this sink. So I'm going to split this, connect these. And then the line that I selected was actually in back of the edge of the sink, so I've got to move these, offset it 3/4 of an inch so it laps the lip of the sink. And then we'll do a little fillet action on here, that 3/4 of an inch. Just to soften that edge, ease it. Okay. So the height should have been correct based on the other cabinets, but I will double check that also. Yes, it is. And you can see what we had done there. We're lapping the edge. And I'm getting some overlap there, so I'll have to double check where my height of this sink is at, but it looks like it's aligned with the top there, so I might have to bump that up just a hair. So if I edit the work plane, disassociate, it should be floating now without an association to that previous. And if I edit this, should be landing about there. So that's with 3/4 inch. Countertops. We're gonna have the typical 1 1/4 for our purposes, 1 1/2 in the model. And just making sure, yeah, so we're back up at 3 feet there. So those other cabinets were a touch low, which that's fine for our purposes here. And we'll modify our island countertop. Just going to delete this out and draw this rectangle. So now I've got my elements in place for the kitchen overall. And I can delete out these dashed lines, but I'm actually going to copy them and delete, and then paste them in my reflected ceiling plan. Modify, paste, align to same place, align to current view, so that I have reference for any pendant lighting or light fixtures that should be dropping over those units. So let's take a look in 3D, make sure everything's looking okay, and it is. Noticing that these panels are the wrong color, so we'll make them not the default white, but we will make them our wood trim color. Okay. And that should change all of them since that's a family type parameter. Let's see. Yes. Okay. Not bad. It's starting to shape up. So we'll continue on with some of these kitchen components. I think things are looking a little tighter than I expected on the plan, but still, you know, decent amount of space around a lot of these things. We'll start putting in some other furniture in here just so we get an overall idea of the overall floor plan, and then we can start reassessing things. But I'm just going to sort of fast forward here and lay out a little bit more of the kitchen, and then we'll come back and assess where we're at. Alright, so we're learning that the kitchen is a little bit smaller than anticipated, but that's okay. We had a couple of design options that we're going to explore here, one of which being setting the cooktop and oven in the island. And I think because it's such a large open space, kind of moving from the left to the right, that this could be a good option for entertaining and just to kind of disperse the kitchen and island equipment a little deeper into the surrounding space here. So I just wanted to finish putting some kind of trim touches here on the island. So I'm going to run around here and do a 3/4 inch trim, copy everything out from the edge, trim this. And then we can put our posts there just to kind of finalize the appearance, the overall look at least, of this. Do 3.5 inch drop and do the color to match. And I had set the island at a 48 inch width, which will be good, especially if you have that equipment there. We may even be able to explore sort of separate height countertops, which again will just help kind of delineate the kitchen use from the eating functionality. So let's just finish adding this trim in. And I will go in plan view and then also we'll just start with a couple of simple extrusions for now. We can add more detail onto these later, but just want to get the overall idea. Okay, we can pop in our stools there, and yeah, I mean, looking at it a little more, I think it might be nice to kind of delineate the countertop space by doing a high-low, but I'm going to finish populating these. We're going to put some pantry closets in along this wall, and then we'll put some furniture in, and that might be it for this first pass. I'm going to start sheeting things up and just having a general overview of some kitchen elevations, 3D axonometric views, before we get into some renderings maybe next round. So let's get the rest of this populated here. So I've been going at this for a little bit here, so I thought I'd at least kind of pause and explain where I'm at. It's looking like I'd like to have sort of a coffee bar in this area with a little bit of relief. We may be able to go just like full span with some double height shelf space there, or sort of a shelf, low shelf, and but I think I want to get some cabinets to either side just for some extra storage. But now that I'm looking at it, I don't know, it might be beneficial just to go like full width with that, and just do lower cabinets along the bottom. Maybe 2 smaller ones on the ends and then a larger one in the middle. That's sort of the effect I was starting to go with here, and then I started exploring maybe, what if it was even smaller on the ends. Usually it's a better aesthetic. Have sort of slightly smaller cabinets at the ends. Let's see how that looks. Maybe that'll still be okay for what we're going for here. That way, if you've got some coffee pods or things like that, you can still kind of get in there and grab it. And then this might end up being a little bit more of a custom component, so we'll just get in the elevation and test out what the width is. So 2'10", 7/8". Or if we could find a 2'9", is what? Let's see, 24 plus 9, 33, or even a 30-inch cabinet drawer, and then do some filler pieces on the ends. That way we can kind of stay within the typical unit widths. I think we'll try that to start. So let me get a 30-inch here. I'll have to duplicate this. Go up to 30. And it would be a single drawer, lower height there, which, they do for ovens or microwaves. The width we'll set to 30. And then we'll just have to put in some filler pieces to either end there, which should be fine. And then I got a little bit of under cabinet lighting kind of sneaking in there. Let's see if it'll snap for me. It does. That's great. I just want to make sure that this is aligned to the center of that. It is. I could take this kind of cabinet top here, full width. And then we'll go in our plan view and drop in some base fillers so that it matches the toe kick. All right, we're getting pretty close to just wrapping this up here. So I'm going to finalize the kitchen by popping in a couple upper cabinets, a couple more details in there. But it looks like we've got everything we need here. I'm going to run through and just kind of populate it with a few notes so the homeowner understands what they're looking at when they're seeing these elevations. We've got all the elevations. We've got an enlarged floor plan. So I'm just trying to find my 16th inch aerial so I can say electric cooktop and oven combo in the island here. And so obviously we're going to need a hood vent, but without, going too far, without consulting with the homeowner. I just want to get the general items in here, and I should have these all tagged up, or if not, I can throw a tag on there and just measure it out for them so they understand what they're looking at. A base cabinet, 2-drawer, 18. So B for base, 18-2 DR drawer. And when I make that change, it should change all those. The same thing with this, base 9-inch, 1 door, 1D. And those are going to be great for cooking sheets, thin pans, or shallow depth pans, things of that nature. And I can throw some overall dimensions on here just so we know what we're looking at. And same thing for the countertop material. Let's say quartz or approved equal. So that's pretty good. Gives us a little bit of an understanding of what we're looking at. I'm just going to copy these so I can copy them over to this view here. Modify, paste, same place, or align to current view. I'm just going to take these and move them off to the side so it's easier to read. And we'll say we've got left justify these. We've got the refrigerator. Got the countertops. And if I start tagging these up, it should also, so that one was tagged. Some of these may not be, but I want to just make sure I have the general parts and pieces tagged, so when we do get on a phone call, we can have a conversation about it. So dishwasher, and I'm going to throw in some extra cabinets here to the left and right for utensils and plates, cups, things of that nature. Put some uppers in. So this one should be pretty close. And then here, I can tag these guys. Pantry. Put some overall dimensions on there. It's 3.0. 5'11", another 3.0. This was a base 18, but it's a shallow depth. 2 drawer. And this is a base 30. We'll say 1 door. That's sort of a more custom piece that we'll have to discuss with the kitchen fabricator, but this is like a pretty good overall kitchen sheet. Shows you the elevations of all the cabinet layout and appliances. And then on the floor plan, I also like to just put some dimensions on there so I can reference our deeper countertop depth, our overall length of all the countertops. So we should hide the crop plane there. And let's see, I should be able to bring this out in front of that. Get a width on here, which I decreased to 3'6" because we were getting a little tight against the pantries over along that wall. So, but this should do the trick for now. And I'm just gonna tag this window, I'm gonna call it O2 for now. Again, another talking point, but it just shows that I've given consideration to it, and that should be okay. So I'm going to get back to just finishing populating that, adding some furniture, maybe cleaning up a floor plan a little bit, and that should be it for our deliverable. I think I did want to see if I can increase the size on this just a touch without it going off the page. Yep, so that should do. Alright, so let's just add some furniture, clean up this plan, and we'll be good to go for our first deliverable. So one more thing that is important on these floor plans, I think, to add is some rooms. So for the open rooms, you'll have to use a room separator line just to kind of pull a line between these walls. And then I hide them afterwards so that they're not visible. But for door openings, where the door does not qualify as like a room separation, you'll need to add these lines to separate the spaces. And then it's good to like generally delineate some of these open spaces so you can allocate or just associate different square footages with these different areas. So across here, I'll just run one and we should be okay. So then you take your room and you'll be able to sort of locate it in the center of each room. And then you can go through and label those afterwards, but this way I can see how much square footage each one is and what name is. So I've got a room tag here with room number and area, sort of custom made. And again, I'm just going to run through, throw these down, and it makes the floor plan just look that much more considered and planned for, because when you do start to add information about doors that have been added or windows, it's important to have rooms that they're associated with. So I'm just going to run through here and title these up. We added a new closet here. And the room number is important too, so I'm just going to start with this foyer as room 100 and then kind of go counterclockwise. 101. 102. 103, 104, 105. We'll do our closet as 107 there. And then I can take these and hide and view category. So since this is a small closet, I'm just going to hide the tag, or I can hide the area actually. Change the tag so it's just with room number 107. That works. And there we go. So I got to make sure to go into some of my other views and hide this line as well if I don't want it to be visible, which I don't. So I'm just going to be issuing a floor plan, 3D view, and those kitchen plans. So I'll make sure I go into my kitchen, make sure those aren't visible in this view either. Hide in view, category. Same thing with my 3D views. And that should do the trick. So last but not least, just finish up this kitchen wall, a little bit of furniture pieces, and then we'll be on our way. So just had to do a little correction to some of my cabinet units down below here. Just throwing in a faucet. It's looking like chrome or stainless steel might be our accent color. And components, I'm going to just put up a couple of upper cabinets along the wall there. We might do a transom, but again, these are some details that we'll get into after we have a meeting or two with the homeowner. And it would be nice to have this as symmetric as possible. I've got a deeper countertop, so I want to see if I can get the 15-inch depth cabinets. And we're going to paint these with our trim color. Cabinet material, drawer door material. Get these, the door color also to match. And then I'm basically going to mirror this over the sink, and wherever it lands, just so that it's symmetrical, is going to be where it's at. So I think I got to flip this so the handle side is there. We'll put this against the wall there. And just mirror this over our sink. And it's okay, I think, to have a little bit of room around there, so we might be able to increase these to doubles. But I'm going to want to raise them off of my countertop height a little bit. And then make sure that they are 3 foot. So they match the height of our overall. So we'll start there. I may put a little transom piece of glass in real quick. Place model component. Generic. Okay. Transom. Extrusion. I'll set it to the face of the cabinet. And then we'll just do line there, connect the top. We'll go about 12 inches down for now. Maybe 15 inches down. That looks appropriate. Offset that 1.5. Seems appropriate. The trim color is dark. Extrusion also 1.5. Might have to go negative on that. We do. And then I'm going to copy that, paste it in place, and then do a clear glass transom for now. Just by editing that and deleting the perimeter. If it's 1.5 and we want half-inch glass, so we'll start at 0.5, we'll run it negative 0.5. And then we'll change the glass material, and that should do it. Looks pretty good for our purposes. I might even just want to set that back, so I'm just going to jump into ceiling view. Just copy it. Do not constrain. Take it back about 3 inches. Okay, that looks good. And then put a plant over in this corner, why not? That should be good. I'm just going to take a quick glance at our floor plan. Everything looks good. I'm going to hide that. Okay. Take a look at our 3D view overall. That looks pretty good. And then take a look at our kitchen view. And that looks good. So I'll export this and then we can kind of just talk overview and see where we're at with the design. Alright, so that took us through existing conditions and through a first design iteration, what we would see typically just bringing it to a level with shaded views, don't quite have all the detailing in yet, such as trim work or lighting even, but I do want to take a look at showing you guys what some AI rendering options would look like, to be able to present those to clients at an earlier stage, just to get some direction of where we could take the design. So we'll do a quick overview of the design that where we ended up with the design. So I'll just sort of zoom in. These are the PDFs that came out, and the idea per the little design charrette that we had was, you come in, you're able to just have a moment of repose, use the closet to store any of your guests or your own, jackets, shoes, items, things like that. We might put a little bench along this wall here to kind of facilitate that. And then as you move through the space, you have this window sort of at the end of that long corridor hallway to let the natural light into the deeper kitchen space. Since it's a pretty tight kitchen space, we used this north wall here for some additional pantry storage, as well as other kitchen items that may not be used as regularly, as well as a coffee station, tea station. And then in this area over here, we were able to remove a closet and put in a media station, which would be a TV or game consoles, those types of things embedded in there, with option for a fireplace and 2 storage units at either side for books, games, things of that nature. So that's about the extent of this remodel, with full flooring throughout. And the second PDF here shows the design from a 3D overview. And then the kitchen is a pretty major component to this remodel, so we always include 3D drawings with our colored elevations just to start things off. The contractor will eventually come in with a kitchen supplier with the different cabinets that we can select the color of wood, the type of wood, the species of wood, the style and type of cabinets, to kind of buckle down on some of those details. And then I did add a couple of perspective views, and this is what we're going to take a look at in terms of the AI rendering. So I want to pull up one of the programs or websites, companies that I've been using. It's called Prome AI, and you create an account and you've got some free capabilities, and then if you want to pay for the extra capabilities, you certainly can. There's a lot of different options for different types of designs. So in this case, we're going to use this sketch rendering tool, and you can click on it here, just say start. And it's going to ask you basically a few questions and to get you started. So, but over here, there is a plus symbol, and if you select that, it allows you to upload your image. So I've done a couple of iterations on this already, but I wanted to basically show you what it would look like. So here we have the option to select styles down at the bottom. You can do realistic, cinematic, and there's a few other options, but since we want to keep this pretty realistic, I'm just going to keep that selected there. The scene it wants to know so that it can better tailor the image. Again, this can be used for product design or a number of other things, but for our case we're using interior, and then you can be even more specific that this is actually a kitchen that we're going to be looking at. And then last but not least, the render mode. There's a few different options, some that let you get a little more imaginative, but again, for our purposes, we want to keep the outline mode where it preserves most of the outline with just a little bit of creativity. And with that, we can start to plug in the prompt. And so I should have the prompt saved from one of these previous. So if I actually click to copy, I can plug it back in here. And I'll read it off real quickly. It's a modern kitchen in the styling of a Victorian era home and Frank Lloyd Wright with walnut toned cabinets, white marble countertops, and a stained glass window with artful woodworking details such as trim and corbels, minimal yet sleek, and traditional yet updated. And you just click generate. And like I mentioned, you can see some of the previous generations that were here before. I didn't even add any clarifications in terms of the color, but it seemed to pick up on the sort of minty blue or sort of that royally midnight greenish blue previously. But these next iterations are looking pretty interesting. It sort of kicked out my window, and it's taking some liberty in changing some of the cabinet types to refrigerators. But here you've got a slider that you can basically go back and forward to see where you were and where it's adjusting. So it's pretty great. I mean, in terms of, keeping the transom and the window over by the sink, and even just adding a little bit more detail on that plant over there. It did convert that window into a door, so I'll show you how we can kind of kick that back. It eliminated our oven underneath the cooktop there. So clearly, it's taking some liberties, a little too many liberties for some of these generations. But some of these aren't bad. This one is a lot closer, it looks like. So it kept the cabinets back here along the coffee station bar. It lowered that window, which maybe isn't a bad idea. But even the furniture, it holds the geometry and kind of puts a little extra styling to it. It kept the leg on the island, which is really great. In this one, it eliminated the cooktop. So you can see, you can either download them and kind of merge and lap some of the different images over one another to kind of keep various parts and pieces. But they also have another option. So I actually liked this previous option that it had given me. But now that I'm seeing this, I think we might just start with this one. So you can download it. You've got a preview download, which is free. It's pretty small, but then they also offer an upscaler, which basically takes the image and just increases the size of it. If you come up here to the edit, you can go to the erase and replace. So let's try that. And it opens it up in a new window. So you can always go back to your kind of previous window and explore performing image analysis. So there, this is it's gotten better in recent iterations and versions. It looks like I can just sort of select the entire thing. So that's great. It sort of picks it for me. And let's see if I can replace with fixed clear glass window. And it'll take a few seconds. Actually, these generations don't take very long in comparison to Photoshop or even some other options that use generative design to fill and replace. And for these, you get 3 options like you also do in Adobe Photoshop. But I have noticed that these, I think because they're trained specifically more on data for architecture in certain situations, it looks like, they're more prone to creating architectural sort of replacement items. So we're getting closer here. If I use a slider again, it's not a solid door, but it's a window. And I'm actually not sure if I put window in that. I did put window. So it might, again, take a few iterations for you to kind of get to the finish line there. But the image is pretty good overall to get an idea, for the client to get an idea of what their space can look like. So here it's just toggling back and forward from where you were to where you are now, and you can give it another try. But so anyway, I'll do a quick download of, let's say, this one, just so you can see what the quality looks like if you wanted to include that in your documentation. So not bad. So that's going to be it for now. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for updates on this project and other projects that we've got going on, as well as some of our documentation that we have under construction. All these videos are available on our website or on this YouTube channel. We'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.